Hello, my name is Ann Gritch, and I am delighted that we are here on another segment of the oral history of the Diocese of San Jose. With me is Sister Claude Power. Sister is a member of the Sisters of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary and was superintendent of schools at the beginning of our diocese. So she has many stories to tell. Sister, welcome, and tell me, where were you when the announcement was made that we were going to be a diocese in San Jose?
I was in the Department of Education in the Archdiocese of San Francisco on 443 Church Street.
All right. What floor?
Second floor.
Second floor. And what was your position, Sister?
At that time, I was Associate Superintendent of Schools.
Now, how long had you been working in the Chancery itself?
Well, I was in there for almost 14 years. I came in initially under Monsignor John Foudy as a sister supervisor. And then Monsignor Ben Cummins became the next superintendent, and I became assistant superintendent. And then when Monsignor's untimely death of leukemia, then at that time, Monsignor Pierre Demain took over, and at that era I became associate superintendent because for all practical purposes I was really doing the elementary. Altogether it was close to 15 years.
And that was 4 counties at that time, right?
Oh, we went from Nevada to Gilroy.
Wow, that was quite something. Yeah. So the announcement is made on January 27th, 1981. What was your feeling?
Well, I was thrilled and delighted because, to be really honest, all of our Catholic schools in Santa Clara County felt like they were the stepchild. And in fairness to them, we went down usually once a year to visit every principal, but otherwise we really only went to the Santa Clara Valley if there was a problem. And, but that's just the way it was. From my office in San Francisco, I could get up to Nevada in about 35 minutes, but coming to the Santa Clara Valley was a different story altogether.
Yeah. Monsignor Milani had mentioned the same thing, that the South County felt neglected by the Archdiocese because, again, of the distance.
That's right.
So you were delighted, and how did you come to San Jose?
Well, Bishop Demain invited me to be the first superintendent of schools, but at that time, the Presentation Sisters had a tremendous presence in the Santa Clara Valley. I mean, we had Presentation High School, we had St. Christopher's, St. John Vianney, St. Patrick, St. Catherine, and a connection with St. Mary's Gilroy. So there was a very, very strong presence. And, I was familiar with the whole area, and I also saw it was a great growth area. So I just really had every reason to come.
That's great. Well, we're very glad you did. Our first offices were at St. Joseph's College.
Which was wonderful. I know the people that lived in South County were not happy because we had to go to North County, but the seminary had everything going for it. The seminary was not only a beautiful site, we had the chapel for if we wanted to have the masses for the principals, whatever. We had the dining room services, and then we had all this beautiful lawn and all the scenery if we had an outdoor reception, and we also had excellent conference rooms. So in the very beginning, I found it really very exciting to be living at the seminary. It was great. It was a great experience.
When I first started with the diocese in 1987, we were at the seminary, and you're right, it was just a wonderful place. I remember having an office that overlooked the inner courtyard, and you just look out the window, and it was just wonderful. Absolutely. So you had to set up an office then.
We did. The Sister Josele Young, who had been the community supervisor for the Sisters of Mercy, the two of us started the offices.
Now, how did you get to know her?
Well, I knew all these people from the Archdiocese of San Francisco. I mean, I had been in the diocesan office for all those years. I knew all the community supervisors. And it was just, I can't tell you what an exciting opportunity it was to be able to start a new Department of Ed.
I can imagine.
First of all, I knew all the principals, and there was just a great community spirit from the very beginning. And then in the United States at that time, one of the most prominent superintendents was a woman by the name of Sister Marianne Eckhoff. She was a school sister at Notre Dame. She was the superintendent of St. Louis, Missouri. And she was so prominent in NCEA and just all of the exciting things she was doing. So I invited her in the very beginning to come to San Jose for 3 days to look over our diocese, all of our documents, and say, now, if you were starting, what suggestions would you make? Well, that just made a tremendous difference because Mary Ann made all these suggestions. The principals were terribly excited, and we started right off, right from the very beginning. And it didn't take too long, and San Jose was really on the map, I have to tell you. I mean, originally, everything used to be San Francisco, and in not too many years, it shifted to San Jose. And then one of our most exciting things that happened, we were just starting to go into technology. And the principals were forming these committees at every school. Well, should I do IBM? Should I do Apple? What should I do? And a sister, by the holy name sister by the name of Sister Martha Raleigh, just happened to be working for Apple. So she came to see me and she said, if you want to talk to your principals, if they're willing to do it, I will give every single principal a Mac computer and I will train them how to use it.
Oh my.
So I consulted the principals. We had 28 principals elementary, 100% participation. We came all together in the department. Every principal got a computer. She trained and trained till I wouldn't tell you how fast they learned how to use that little Mac. Well, overnight the whole system went Macintosh, Apple. But that was a very exciting time.
Oh, I can imagine. It was just when Silicon Valley was emerging.
Yes. And then shortly after Joseel and I, we were just getting things going. Then we began to realize that we needed a third person. So we brought in Tim Brosnan, who's presently the principal of MIDI. Mm-hmm. And Tim was one of the most creative principals we had. And you can't imagine all the things he did for the Department of Ed. So it was a wonderful combination at that time.
I can imagine, because we had how many grammar schools?
Well, we had 28 elementary at that time, and then 6 high schools.
And 6 high schools, yeah. So you were a busy lady.
And the first big thing when I arrived was we have to build a new school in South County. Well, that was a challenge, but that was on the agenda from the very beginning.
Right. Now, the 6 high schools, Archbishop Mitty was ours, right?
Archbishop Mitty was the diocesan school.
Right.
Yeah.
So you had formed, did you know the administrators of the other schools, or did you have to start that?
I knew the high school people, but to be very honest, I didn't have anything to do with the high schools. What kept happening in San Francisco, I would take care of the elementary. The superintendents, for example, Bishop Demain and Monsignor Cummins had they had taught in high school in their earlier days, so they were very familiar with the high school. So the superintendent handled the high schools. Mm-hmm. So I knew the high school principals. I had met them, but I mean, I really was not that familiar with the high schools at all.
Now you're talking about San Francisco.
I'm talking about the whole archdiocese.
The whole archdiocese, so that would take into account ours. So now Tim Brosnan worked with you for how many years, and then he went on to MIDI?
Tim was only with me a little over 2 years, and then the brothers were leaving Reardon, and Tim came to me, leaving MIDI, and Tim came to me and said, we'll never get another opportunity like this, because he was also a high school person. At that moment, he was principal of St. Martin of Tours, but he had been in Bellarmine for a number of years teaching, and he said this would be a golden opportunity. And when we finally decided that was the right thing to do, so we sent Tim as the first lay principal of Archbishop Mitty. There were something like 930 students. Today there's some more like 1,700. I mean, if you can't recognize the campus. When I brought Bishop McGraw down there, when he became coming to San Jose, he could not get over how the campus was transformed. He just couldn't get over it.
It's just, it's amazing.
But anyway, those were all exciting days. That's all I can say.
Now, how involved, of course, Bishop Dumaine had an awful lot on his plate as the first bishop of San Jose, but we always sensed that he had a special place in his heart for education and for schools. So
no.
You found him very supportive, I'm sure.
Oh, it was wonderful to have a bishop who had been a former superintendent, because they totally understood the problems of education. And also it was a tremendous help in getting increased salaries for our teachers, to get very fine salaries. The very fact that the bishop had been a superintendent made a huge difference.
I can imagine. What were some of the challenges at the beginning?
Well, the two things always that you were really concerned about was Catholic identity, because the transformation of the school, on the first wave, when you lost the sisters, you had a tremendous number of former sisters who became principals. Then when that wave was gone, you know, it was just more of a challenge to maintain your Catholic identity. And then your second great challenge always was fiscal stability for your schools.
Sure.
So those were the two things from the very beginning. We were working on development director, to get a development director to work with all of our principals. And then Tim Brosnan was like in charge of the religion coordinators, and he just had marvelous in-service for the religion. We had a religion coordinator in every school. Mm-hmm. But those were two things we were always working on, was the Catholic identity and then the you know, sound fiscal submit.
Sure. And then, as I remember, when we moved then to Lenzen, the office is on Lenzen in San Jose, and it seems to me the department expanded, that you were able to have more people because there was just more work, more things going on.
Well, we usually always just pretty much stayed with three of us, though.
Okay.
And then we had an excellent secretary.
Yeah, Judy, I can't remember her name.
Judy Yim was in the beginning, and then there was and then finally Clarissa came on at the end. Yeah,
she was terrific.
No, but,
is terrific.
Yeah.
How was the relationship with the catechetical office?
We had a wonderful relationship. You know, from the very beginning in the early days, Marcella Fabing was the first. And then Alice Molina came along, and Alice and I had this great dream. San Jose was opening the new convention center. And we said we would love to move our yearly event to that convention center. And I must say, people just thought that we were out of our mind. They said, you're a little group like that. So we worked, and we got, I think, Monterey, and I forget who else. And we put on we had that day. It was fantastic. We went to the new convention center for our religious institute.
I remember.
But I had a wonderful relationship with the religious ed people. It was great.
Which I think is unique.
Yeah. In the early days, we worked very, very close together. It was Joe Bauer was youth ministry, and then Gloria Loya and Ana Marie Pineda were, they called El Centro Pastoral, and then Dick Hilliard was worship. And we all collaborated and worked things together. But as the years went by, I always had a marvelous relationship with religious ed.
Yeah.
I had the greatest respect. I used to go faithfully to their pies, the 10th dinner every
year.
Yes,
yeah. No, I do remember when I started with the diocese, there was this great sense of collaboration, particularly when we were at St. Joseph. Part of it, I think, was having lunch together. Remember?
Well, in the beginning, though, when we were first starting the diocese, I can remember that one of the rectors at the seminary was Father Jerry Brown, and he would invite us, so the whole department heads, and we would sit there and dream what we'd like for a new diocese. So there were just all kinds of exciting things of what you thought should happen. It's an era that will not be duplicated.
And you served how long?
Well, I was in San Jose for 18 years.
18 years.
Yeah.
So you've
I finally decided
changes.
to retire at the turn of the century. So shortly after 2000, that June, I retired. Yeah.
You must feel very proud of what you've accomplished, though.
Well, it was really wonderful. I have to say, it was a great spirit among the principals, and the school system was very sound in every way. You know, financially and numbers and all the rest. We were looking forward toward growth.
And it happened.
Yeah.
Right. I love the story about the Macs. Every principal having one. That was just
exciting.
Just very forward-looking. So, Sister Claude, just one last question. You're one of the founding mothers of the diocese. Looking back, how does that feel?
Well, something I'm extremely proud of, because the Diocese of San Jose, when we started out, was just unbelievably successful. So many exciting things. And the school system was, I just couldn't praise it enough, and the principals. So to have been part of this wonderful operation, all I can do is really thank God for it. And so it was a great experience, and it would come once in a lifetime, and I'm extremely grateful.
Well, we are very grateful to you, because you definitely were part of building this diocese of ours that we can be so proud of. So, Sister Claude, thank you very much.
Well, thank you very much, Anne, for your kind words.
Good to be together.
Thank you. Okay.
We were blessed to be able to interview Sister Claude Power a few months before she died. Sister Claude was incredibly succinct and very modest. Her interview lasted about 15 minutes. So fortunately, Clarissa Borella, who worked with Sister Claude for many, many years, is here with us now to kind of flesh out and tell us some wonderful stories about Sister Claude. So Clarissa, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. I met Sister Claude Power in 1995 when she hired me to be her administrative assistant in the Diocese of San Jose. Okay. I had the distinct pleasure and pleasure to work for her for 4 years. In those 4 years, she transformed my life in multitude of ways.
Wow.
I am a product of public schools.
Mm-hmm.
My husband is a product of Catholic schools in this valley. Mm-hmm. And when I first started working with Sister Claude, you know, I was very young, very impressionable, and I did not have children of my own mm-hmm. at that time. So I was coming in just purely as a job, as being a secretary. And she took me under her wing, and she taught me not only to value Catholic education and to love Catholic education, but to love the whole Catholic Church. Uh-huh. She helped me in my theology, my own personal spirituality. She was remarkable because she was a sister. She was a nun before she was a superintendent. Uh-huh. So, but she was the superintendent, and she would take me into events. I would ask her, sister, why do I have to go? I'm just the secretary. You know, I understand that this is for the teachers, and this is, you know, like
for the principals.
For the principals. And she would say, no, you're part of the staff. You're just as important to me as a principal, as anybody else.
Wow.
And so she empowered me to be equal and a colleague. And she fostered my love of Catholic schools. And the more that she integrated me into meetings and into events, school events, and professional development events, I learned that I really loved education. And I really loved Catholic education and what it meant and what she brought to the table. And technology, her love for technology.
She was amazing with technology.
She would tell me, okay, we're going to send a mass email to all the principals. Remember, this is 1995 when all this technology was really new. And we would use a system called Connect Now. And I would go, and it was ancient. You could tell it looked like all the little dots. You know, it didn't look beautiful like computers look now in 2017. And yet we were able to communicate with our principals and our teachers in an instant. Mm-hmm. And she expected them to read it. If they did not read it, she knew. Oh, she knew. She would call and she would say, you know, may I speak to Principal so-and-so? This is Sister Claude. And she would say...
And the call would go right through.
And the call would go right through, no hesitation. It's Sister Claude on the phone. And she would start saying, okay, you know, we have to do A, B, and C. And the principal would be like, I'm not sure what A, B, and C is. Well, did you not read my email? I sent it out yesterday at 2 o'clock. And she would have a communication every week. And she was very good about communicating her vision, the future to the principal. She was very collaborative. She would sit there, she would have principals meetings, and it would be a dialogue. And I was always impressed with that, that she was as much power, and she had a lot of power, a lot of influence.
Absolutely.
And you could not say no to Sister, because Sister could persuade you to buy a bridge in the middle of the Sierra. Right. You know, she knew how to sell Catholic education, sell the future, and she cared about every one of the students we had. Mm-hmm. And she cared, she may not have known them individually, but from 1981 to 1999, she influenced each and every one of those children that were educated in Catholic school. In one way or another, her hand touched those students.
That's quite a tribute.
And I felt that. And I felt proud to be a part of that system and watch it grow and watch her legacy continue, not only then, but to now. I work in a Catholic school now.
Which one, Clarissa?
St. Lawrence Elementary and Middle Schools.
Uh-huh.
And I see those kids as children of God because of Sister, because of what she taught me when I worked for her.
That is wonderful.
I was also able to see the powerhouse of the diocese at that time. And it was a dynasty. I really, truly felt it was a dynasty. It was comforting at the time because it was not only a powerhouse, but it was like a family.
Yes.
We were everybody in the chancery were very loving towards each other. And you knew where you stood with each and every one of the heads of the departments.
Well, and Bishop Pierre used the analogy of family all the time when
Yes,
he
he
talked
did.
about
And
the staff.
And you felt it.
Yeah.
You walked in there and you felt immediately the hands of God. You felt immediately the love and the respect. And I was able to see the remarkable dynamic and dynasty of Bishop Pierre Dumaine, Sister Mary Claude Power, and Sister Patricia Marie Peters. And those three founding dynamics of the Diocese of San Jose was just awe to see. It was just awesome. They all had a vision and a purpose, and it surrounded the faith of each and every one of our parishioners, but in different ways. Sister Patricia Marie, who was the head of OPM at the time, she would place ministries, but it would like not only stay in OPM, in the Office of Pastoral Ministries. It would flow to the Office of the Bishop. It would flow into our Catholic schools, our Department of Catholic Schools. It would flow into other departments, but it was all a unit. It all worked in sync. And those three would just come and they would meet, and everything else would fall in place perfectly. Pierre Dumaine, Bishop Dumaine was very very short on words with many people, but he was brilliant, intelligent, and awe. And when he would write articles and when he would convey his message to the chancery employees, when he would have house meetings, I guess what you would call them, you if you were in that presence at that time, you would just be in awe because he was so articulate.
Oh, incredibly
and so intelligent.
Yeah. Any fun stories about Sister Claude?
Oh, I have some good stories. So Sister Claude was one that she always appeared to be a woman of steel. And she never really wore her emotions on her sleeve. And you know, emotions were not her cup of tea.
Right.
And so she comes to me and she says, Clarissa, I need to talk to you. So I go in her office, and I'm a very emotional person, and I loved her. I mean, I really loved this lady.
It shows.
And so she sits down and she says, oh, Clarissa, I'm going to retire, and I'm going to retire within 2 months. I'm just telling you this short period of time because, you know, goodbyes are not, I don't want a long goodbye. And, you know, we have a lot of stuff to do in 2 months. And I said, okay. And I thought about, as the words were resonating in me, oh my gosh, my sister Claude is going to retire. And so with that thought, I burst out into tears.
Of course.
And I mean, I'm the waterworks. And she looks at me like, what's wrong with you? Why are you crying? Nobody died. And she looks at me, but it also made her nervous because I know that equally, as much as I loved her, I knew Sister Claude loved me.
Yes, she did.
And I knew, I could see the emotions trying to come out. And so she goes, no, you need to go. Shoos me out of her office. Go.
Go get some Kleenex and go.
Go for a walk, get some fresh air. And when you're done, come back, because we have a lot of work to do.
That is a wonderful story.
I'm like, okay. So there I go. Come back, get my marching orders.
Wow.
My other favorite story of Sister Claude. We were talking one time, and she was telling me about her teaching experience and when she was a young nun and she was teaching. And she told me that she always did better with the older children. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, I can see that, sister. I can see why you would work better with the older children. And she said, oh, yes. And one day I was working up in San Francisco, and I was the 7th grade teacher. And the 1st grade teacher got sick. And so the 1st grade teacher went to Sister Claude, who was next door, and said, I need you to take care of the 1st graders. I'm not feeling well. So here comes Sister Claude. And she said she put all the 1st graders, and she says, okay, line up. Just like she talks to the 7th graders, line up straight. And one of the first little children looked up at her in her whole attire, her whole habit, and her lips started quivering. And as soon as her lips started quivering, her tears started coming down. And Sister Claude said it was like a domino effect. Oh, no. One affected the other and the other. And Sister Claude said, I didn't know what to do. I said, no, you guys all need to go to to 2nd grade. She marched them all into second grade.
They're your problem.
And left them. I said, I'm dealing with 7th grade.
That's a great story.
But she said that just the little lip. I said, oh no. But you had to hear from Sister, because Sister just had a way, she was just very no nonsense, as you will see from her interview, So to hear her story was quite funny, because it was very cut and dry, but I, of course, was giggling and laughing because I could see that, and I would be the 1st grader going, oh, she scares me.
Oh dear.
When I first was hired for Sister Claude, I went to my parish at the time, and I told a very respected retired priest, pastor at the time, I said, oh, I'm so excited. I got a job at the diocese. You did? I did. Well, who are you going to work for? I said, I'm going to work for Sister Mary Claude Power. Oh, be very careful. I said, why? I really, really liked her when I met her. And I've dealt with her in a previous, because I had worked for a Catholic school very, very short time before that. And I said, no, I really like her. And he goes, okay. He goes, just know, if she says, oh, Clarissa, it could mean anything from she has a run in her pantyhose to a Catholic school is burning down. Yeah. And I go, okay, I'll remember that. And it was very true. She would come in oftentimes and say, oh, Clarissa. And you never knew what was coming right after that.
That is wonderful. Well, you mentioned about Sister Claude, emotions were just not her thing. Intellect was, but there was a great deal of emotion at her funeral. She touched very, very many people, and I am so glad that you came and were able to share with us these stories. So thank you very, very much.
You're very welcome.